welcome to this episode of the Cat Bot AI podcast. Today with me, I have
Ken, Kat's co-host right here. Welcome again. And we also have a guest with us today that Catherine knows quite well. Catherine, would you like to introduce our guest
You
today?
Got It. With us today, we have Lance Tyson, who is the founder of Tyson Group, one of the top selling authors as well, with two books. Lance, what are they?
Yeah, actually, one is The Human Sales Factor, which was out a couple years ago, went number one on the Wall Street Journal list. It's really and it top and it was I think it's top 50 at USA Today, and then then Selling's an Away Game. So they're both books that are processes built on.
And Ken, I read Selling is a Way Game, and I think Lance thought I was joking, but it was one of the best ones I've read in a long time, especially around the sales process. It's highlighted and all like dog-eared, and I've been quoting it. So if you have not read that book and you're in sales, it really a 5-year-old could know how to sell from reading that book. You simplify it and make it such good reminders, Lance, of like, oh man, I forgot I wasn't doing this anymore. Why did I stop?
That's
So
right.
books, we have them. Let's talk a little bit about AI because that's coming more into the sales process. And a lot of people, one, either think, great, this is never going to affect us. We're salespeople, we're like invincible. Or people are thinking, I don't even know how to use AI. What are you talking about?
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, just open it up. What do you see? Tell us a little bit about Tyson Group to start, though. That would
Well,
give us
yeah.
some context.
So I mean, Tyson Group's in the revenue growth and sales effectiveness business. So while we do a lot of training, that's usually I think a lot of leaders will first say their salespeople are broken and challenged as opposed to other things, and it usually kind of reverts back to leadership. So
Yeah.
most organizations hire us for that. So some kind of revenue growth, they're launching a product, go to market. We over-index in sports and entertainment. We have just a really large contingent of our customer bases in sports. So I think that's the sexy part of what we do. So when you know, we had we usually have one team in a championship game, like Kansas City Chiefs are a customer, Super Bowls the other day. So, but we work in other industries too. So we look at complex sales processes, and we look on the sales effectiveness piece is how to reduce sales cycle time. Um, that sometimes comes to with training salespeople, right? So on whatever part of the process is. So as it relates to AI, though, it's kind of interesting. Everybody's all over the place, and I was with the Baltimore Ravens yesterday, and I was talking to their revenue group on the ticket side and their leadership, and somebody said, it's AI is so confusing, and I'm like, it is. I said, if you're trying to get it to do everything and at some level you got to think about this like the way so it's you got to lead the orchestra with it, but you also have to choreograph, and they're two different things. So the orchestra leading is more of a see what kind of symphony you're trying to play. The choreography is getting everything to blend in. So if you're
Hmm.
looking at it as a one stop for everything, you're probably off because you got to actually program the AI. You got to know what the hell you're asking it, right? You can't just say, and on top of that, you have to deliver. A lot of the times you're asking it to do certain things for you at a meeting, or but you actually have to deliver that, right? Now we can get into the depth and breadth of AI. There's all kinds of things you can use it for, but I think it's kind of interesting. So my my only comment to leaders at this point is don't be the last of the buggy whip people. I mean, at the end of the day, the car came out. Don't keep selling buggy whips if right? So it can shake
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
head. Or even back when Google and email, people were like, they were kind of anti all that stuff, but it augments at this point. That's what it looks like. It's an augmenter. So I hope
I
that
mean,
helps.
I've compared it to the as you did, Industrial Revolution. Everyone was looking,
Right.
afraid of it. It's going to replace my job and all that. But the focus on augmentation is really, especially now, what I think a lot of people are not taking advantage of.
Right.
It can make your job easier. It can save you time, and use it while you can use it. Learn it.
Yeah.
I think that you just said it, Ken. I think that the initial reaction of most people is and even in our pregame conversation, it's going to replace me, and it's not. It's not the engine. It's nitrous oxide on the engine, if anything. So I think people and it reduces mundane tasks. As a matter of fact, internally, we had a conversation recently on our client success team, and one of our longtime employees was frustrated. She'd overheard a conversation where we were talking about we have too many people in meetings and things like that. And her job at some level was to take a lot of notes and kind of synchronize things together. And we're like, we don't need this many people on meetings. We can have AI summarize it. I mean, Zoom summarize
Yep.
it, or you could have Otter on the back end and you could have transcripts. And what it does is it takes all that study time. Catherine, I think we even mentioned this. I know somebody at McKinsey and what they have McKinsey's using AI for is I think it's the Copilot product. They're pumping all their intellectual capital into Copilot. So when they get off a meeting, they say, okay, we've probably done this before. What would we recommend? Instead of doing all this research and in
Right.
seconds, it comes back with the McKinsey way to handle something. So there's all kinds of applications to it. So as far as we can see.
I mean, what do you think though? I mean, when we think about, I mean, I started when I was young, so I had a phone book. I literally was cold calling out of a phone book back in the day. What have you seen change the most in the last, say, like 6, 7 years, the sales area?
Well, I owned a company before Tyson Group, and kind of we pulled some of the infrastructure out, and it was called Prospects, PRSPX. And at one point, our group and my family owned several Dale Carnegie training operations, and we divested of that in 2010, and we formed a company called Prospects. And part of the infrastructure we pulled out of some of our investments was a boutique call center, and we did a few things. We sold data. We went after a very complex sales process, and we worked on the front end, right? So we helped with storyboarding, messaging, and winning appointments inside of like if you think about a complex sales process, you're probably dealing with influencers, buyers, and ultimately decision makers who are going to buy some kind of professional service, some kind of product, some kind of SaaS product. So when we did that, we sold a lot of data, and you're talking automatic dialers, you're talking a level of research that can be done pretty quickly from list and things
Right.
like that. The front end of the sales process, to answer your question, what has changed is pre-pandemic, it took 6 to 9 touches to get the attention of a decision maker in various industries, and it took 6 to 9 conversations or quick conversations with those decision makers or touch points to actually win an appointment. Since COVID, it's gone up to 9 to 12 on both ends of it. So if anything, right now, if you're even talking AI, you could reduce the human capital on the front end of the sales process dramatically if done well. However, Ken was talking about this in our pregame though. I think what we haven't weighed out yet as business people and humans, what will happen no matter what, because you think about the generations of things. Um, when all these websites came, early 2000s is when like websites started to come out. People were starting to really lean on the digital side, and then you implant Google, because it wasn't until like 97 that email really started to be used
Yeah.
for business. I mean, it wasn't that long ago if you actually think
No.
about it in generations of things. And people said then, hey, this is going to replace business people. It's going to replace sales people, blah, 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 blah. But what happened over time? It's not like only millennials and I'm kidding when I say this, and Gen Zers are the only one that believe everything on TikTok and online, right? I'm being sarcastic. But my point is, um, what happens is as AI becomes more perfect and more human, people will actually trust it less.
That's
They'll
very true.
actually start to trust it less. There will be crucial parts of conversations that you will want to deal with somebody. My mom went in for an operation on Monday. It looks like she may have been some intestinal cancer, and they couldn't even take a biopsy. They had to just take it out, all the markers. I'm pretty convinced that if the doc said, "Hey, I'm using this AI to reduce risk with an operation," nobody's going to want to talk to AI. They're going to want to talk to a human. They're going to want the bedside manner. So like that's not going to ever go. I can't foresee that going away in a generation because it's something's going to have to back it up to build the trust because bottom line to sell is human. To sell an idea is human. It's a human endeavor. It's like acting. It's human.
That's true.
Let's go into that then, because then that goes into predictive analytics when you start to understand the buyer behavior. So, for example, if I know I'm talking to someone whose mom is, I don't know how old your mom is, let's say she's like 85, and you are a business owner and you are known to be more A-type, and the AI can somehow search who you are in conjunction with your mom, then that's going to give that robot some insight as to how to talk to you, and it can predict kind of what you might say, like when we had our conversation earlier, just talking about how you were like, hey, would you do this this was your mom, would you be doing this operation? So like, how do you think translating that into sales, how is predictive analytics going to play in?
Well, I think it already is playing in. I mean, I think that it's all over the place. I mean, I think, when I go onto Amazon, it can populate whatever I'm going to buy. I think it's been at play for a while. I think what you're talking about is,
How's it going to help salespeople?
well, yeah, I mean, well, it already is. How it's going to help salespeople if you're looking at a complex sales process, it's going to help a salesperson be ready. But see, I think you got to kind of also think of it like this. If you just took complex sales, like B2B sales,
Hmm.
um, there's we know there's a phenomenon happening right now called sales fragmentation. So there's parts of the sales process that are getting punted to predictive, like a predictive index of how to respond and things like that, or the front end, say like where their heavy labor is, prospecting and things like that. But there's parts of the sales process that are going to you're still going to hop on a plane, you're still going to get on a Zoom and talk to somebody and have something scheduled. So say confirming like a front end conversation where you're confirming some things you might have found out based off your research and prompting from AI, but you'll talk to somebody. When you go into a presentation, the human's probably going to present at this point or negotiate,
Yep.
right? So because people want to do business with people at the end of the day. And I don't think that I'm not saying it's never going to go away, but I just can't foresee that happening in a generation or so. I think there's parts of the sale. So I think what you're talking about is it's going to affect prep, right? But even I could have AI right now write for me what are the how to prep. I could have prepped on AI on how to deliver the best um, podcast interview today. How I could answer. I could add AI search you guys, look on YouTube, look at your questions, see what the tone is and everything else, but I still had to pull it off, right? I am, if you're watching this, I am real. Like I'm real. I'm touching my nose right now.
We
But
could
like
deep
I had
dive
to pull
that,
it
Lance.
off. So I think there's those cruxes where AI is going to support that other stuff. So you got support, you got prep, right? You got pre-approach, right? You got
Right.
summaries. I mean, I'll tell you what, writing a proposal at this point is like a non-factor. Like it's just I can take AI and put a current desired situation based off what they said in like 2 seconds, right? It doesn't take long, but I still have to have the credibility to pull it off. People have to believe I can do it. So.
So let me ask you this, the buyer type stuff, stick more on that. How is AI going to help us with that? Because that's so instrumental.
With buyer type stuff? Well, I mean, I think you got to think. I think well, we know in our approach at Tyson Group, for instance, because we have customers all from brands like the Yankees and the Dallas Cowboys or San Francisco 49ers to a private equity firm that sells plastics, right? So we know what has carried over from consumer-based sales is, and if you think about it this way, is personalization first, tailoring, and ultimately customizing. So if you just took something simple like online dating, right? If I was dating now, I couldn't imagine it'd be that hard. I mean, come on. I, really? I mean, I had a guy.
You've been married a
I had
long time,
Uh,
then.
and listen,
Shit.
if anybody's going to complain now, complain, and I will be old. Like I had to show up where my wife was. like I actually had to act like I should have been there, and you may call that stalking at some level. That's certainly, but like I had to kind of make it. But if I can put in everything I want at some level, because what happens right now, how people buy, whether it's online dating, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's
Mhm.
your local weather, right? You're getting this level of personalization and tailoring. Right. So how you're using AI right now is how to personalize it and tailor to the individual,
Yep,
which ultimately leads to the potential to be able to customize something because that's how people are buying right now. Any product or service that is not adding that in, and I got asked this question yesterday, and we get as a company asked a lot. Well, like for instance, if I'm selling hospitality at Top Golf, or I'm selling, which is you sell a couple bays, you sell a room for rent, or like hospitality at the Cleveland Cavaliers, how do I customize
right.
that? Well, that's hard because you have 17, at the Cavs, they have 17,000 seats that all look similar at some level. They have different sections and clubs. And the answer is then you got to customize the sales experience. That's where it has to be customized or tailored. And I'm using some words interchangeably, but I would kind of think they're levels like personalization, tailoring, customization. That's probably that. And that's how you're going to use it. But now there is one more. You asked a really interesting question, Catherine, because here's something to think about. And Ken, you kind of brought it up earlier when you're saying like, "Hey, how do I hack these things?" Our pregame, Ken was like, "How do you stump the joke man, or how do you stump the AI?"
Yeah.
I thought it was hysterical. I
Wow.
think if something, I think we as humans, if something becomes off flawless or too Teflon, we're not going to believe it.
Right.
So I think there's this human factor that it's going to come off too perfect. Now you might argue on the contrary, well, I can program AI to be more human. Okay, it's like gravity. I can't see gravity, but I can know if somebody's not real, right? So I mean, I
Hmm.
think there's that play there, or there's just going to be a suspicion there. So I'm not knocking AI. I use it all the time. We're all in as a company, like
Yeah.
all
I mean, the legality part, I know in California right now, if you are using an AI voice, you have to say that on the call legally. So depending on the
there you
states,
go.
they're going to know, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean, they're going to know. I mean, whoever, and there's going to be people that cheated and stuff like that. But I think getting back to the original point, like if I'm in sales leadership or I'm a business owner,
Hmm.
I can have my people focused um, on more critical parts of the sales process or the business process.
Okay, so give us an example of that. How is it going to actually change our work? And two-part question. What would a critical part of the sales process be, in your opinion?
Well, like if you look at a complex sales process, if I were selling AI, for instance, right, and we own a company, we have an investment in a company, excuse me, in a company called Sagey, and it's like an inclusive. I forget you called it something, Catherine. I think you used it. It's inclusive. It's not open ended. It's closed
It's a
ended.
closed source
Closed
system.
source. Thank you.
Yeah.
Label the words. My ultimate job in life, my real job, what I want is I want to name ships and nail polish for OPI. I like naming stuff. So my wife came in, went away recently, and she had this like vamp color on her nails. I go, "Oh, Lise, what's that color?" And she's like, "Midnight in Moscow." I'm like, "Let's fucking go. That's a great name. Let's go." Right. But Sagey is and it's sageful.ai. It's the product's called Sagey, and it's a closed source. And we were kind of front end on it when we made our investment in the company. A really, really great entrepreneur named Michael Pape founded the company. He founded a company in the past called Waggle. We've done business for years with him. He's been. I think I actually trained him in a sales class one time when that's where I
That's
first met
funny.
him. I think I was teaching a Dale Carnegie sales class in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. We were both the same age and we always stayed in touch. So, but anyway, he's out in Silicon Valley and he hit me up and he said, "Hey, we have this AI product that can gobble up all your information in your books and act as if it's a coach, right?" So I think one thing is we can use AI to train people, right?
Hmm.
Not to
Hmm.
take over training. Once again, and Ken was shaking his head, I think it's to augment, right? I think that's important, right?
Mhm.
It's, I can get in a simulator, it doesn't mean I can fly a plane.
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So, all right, so we got that. So you can reduce costs there. Then when you get to significant parts of the sales process, so let's look at a simplistic sales process, right? I go buy an iPad at Best Buy or um, I don't know, Apple Store, and I start picking up the iPad and touching it, and I go look at a Magic Keyboard and like my iPencil, and I'm touching it, and the critical part of that sales process is the engagement, the demo, right? And there's still things
Right.
that are demoed. I think that's one thing. If you look at a complex sales process, there's probably like a first meeting, a meeting one, right? That's used to establish credibility, rapport, and understanding. Maybe it's credibility meeting or capability. That becomes a crux. I think AI can lead up and support that.
Definitely.
It can lead up to the pre-planning. But I think you actually asking questions and responding to that and using examples, people are going to want to human there. In between that, before some kind of presentation or pitch or prescription, um, you're going to use AI to really reduce the cost of what it takes to build out a proposal, right? So you're gonna and you're gonna see, you know, I think having graphic people that are just graphic artists and things like that. I think those people are going to have to be good also at assembling a lot of things, maybe just not graphic artists, like being able to put the whole thing together. But then you got to come back and pitch, right? So it's not going to do the pitch; it's going to support the pitch, and then in some kind of live negotiation, get an offer and counter offer after that, and this back and forth. I mean, I think it can prep you for it. You still got to pull it off though at this point.
Right.
So
Right.
I think if you look at those are the cruxes, kind of like that first meeting, second meeting, or that engagement on consumer products. I think that's where it's gonna, I think that's what you're kind of looking at. So
So let me ask you this, because I know we both train salespeople. Um, in the beginning, I do not teach them how to use any AI tools if they're new to a sales process. What do you adhere to?
it's kind of interesting. I stay away from never and always. So as a
Facts.
philosophy.
I'm going to go with never because I'll tell you my story after. I have some
Well,
ex
I like to meet people where they are. I mean,
Yeah.
I think what I'm where I lead, and you and I've talked about this a little bit. I lead with brutal truths, and if it comes out there, I'll ask them how they're using it. We work with Monumental Sports and Entertainment, which is owns the Washington Wizards, and they own the Washington Caps. They're doing major upgrades to Capital One Arena in DC, and we were working with their pretty high level group that sells sponsorship and media and things like that. And big part of their job is engaging big brands. And
Hmm.
we got into it there's like six of their high end people in the room, and we immediately started talking about. I said, "What's your brutal truth?" And they're like trying to figure out how to use AI to prospect. So I can tell there, I walked into it, and then we teed up on how they were using it. And we do know this though, which is kind of interesting about AI. There was a podcast between Joe Rogan and who's the founder of ChatGPT? What's his name?
Sam Altman.
Sam
Yes,
Alman.
Altman. Sam Altman. And it was AI Sam and AI Joe.
Yep.
And they
Hmm.
actually asked, there was a question in the interview, and it was really hard to tell that they were actually AI, right? It wasn't video, it was just, and Sam had gone on to say something to the effect that if you're like a really linear thinker, you're not going to be as good with AI as somebody that's really kind of creative, right? Like you kind
Right.
of so like I saw in that room, Catherine, that there was one salesperson that was really OCD, because sales is two parts, right? It's half art and half science, right? So you get the artistic side, the kind of the human side, and things like that. And in science, there's a predictable, scalable process, and the key is to be good at both, right? Or at least proficient. The couple of people that there was actually two that really OCD, very process oriented, if this then that, they really kind of struggled with the prompts and how to guide it. The creative ones were just really like verbose, right? They were getting all these answers.
Yeah.
I think that day, in terms of hard results,
Yeah.
we crafted 19 specific messages to brands at a level one, level two, And within 48 hours, no, it was 72 hours because it was a Tuesday. So by Friday, we had scheduled 13,
Dude,
19 appointments with crafted messages, and they were keyed in. They were short. They were just, but it was like all the research. It went all in. It's like, all right, who are the players here?
right.
What's some recent news that we can reference? What are some public and community initiatives? We
Yeah,
prompt right, and then we just took a we call them impact statements at Tyson Group. It's a credibility statement or a benefit statement or elevator speech. It's
Hmm.
not quite a value proposition. A value proposition would only have to happen after you met somebody, but we crafted it really specific. It was hard hitting. It was very, if you go back to that personalization, tailoring, customized, it definitely hit the personalization thing. It wasn't cheeseball, but it gave a talking point to set. It didn't set the appointment though.
right.
The salesperson set the appointment. The salesperson still had to negotiate the appointment. It crafted the message, and the salesperson who really prompted it well knew the message. That was key. That was 100% the key. So that would be my answer to that. I don't know why, and you might have a reason you don't kind of start off with AI. I just kind of
Yeah. I mean, the reason based, I think our context is different. Based on why I don't is I'm thinking of somebody that's brand new to getting a sales process. What I had over the summer is I had two people just take the process, put it into ChatGPT and say, fill this out. And then, because I have people send me their drafts, et cetera,
right,
throughout
right,
the
right.
week. And I got it back and I literally wrote, I'm like, this is AI. You didn't even try.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's why I stopped, where it's like, okay, you at least have to learn the process first, because what if the electricity is out? What if you're going to sit on your phone, you're in a meeting with somebody, you're going to be on your phone. So that's why. And then the second piece I will say, and I will credit my parents to this. They were, because I'm not an engineer, but I can manipulate AI like no other because I know how to write.
That's right. That's right.
Hmm.
And you got that creative side. I think it's kind of interesting. You bring up a couple interesting points because, like last week when you were in San Francisco, which
Yeah,
totally excited that as we work together, we're going to dominate San Francisco and Silicon Valley with your vision for this. So I can't wait to that piece. But
definitely.
I think if you look at the two groups you're with, you're probably with a more junior sales group with
Correct.
Sacramento FC, and then when you were at the San Francisco Giants, that was a little bit more seasoned that group. So like you kind of meet them where they are. But you said something that was really interesting. I was at my Super Bowl. I'm from Philly originally, so I flew in. I ended up going to a Super Bowl party. That was the night before my mom had her operation this past Monday, and my niece got a Jeep, like a 2013 Jeep, had like some aftermarket tires on it, and um she showed me, she goes, Uncle Lance, I got a dent in my mom's car. She backed it in. And like, it was kind of, we were laughing and
That
her parents weren't
sucks.
mad or anything. But she had just got the backup camera they got an aftermarket backup camera because it was an older Jeep. And I was thinking, my brother asked me, he goes, hey, he goes, what would you do with your boys? And I go, well, when I bought them cars, and so I have sons in their 20s, when we first got them cars, I didn't put a backup camera on it or any sensors because I wanted them to be able to drive without a bunch of aids, meaning
Hmm.
like you got to have that sensory acuity a little bit. And I think what
Yep.
you're saying is if you don't have that sensory acuity to know how to maneuver, right? Like I think that's what makes you better. And the other thing too is if you got to know the sales process because it is
Right.
artful, it is science, and if you cheat the sales process, you cheat yourself
Yeah.
every time, every single time.
And
So
AI is not going to pick up on certain nuances that a prospect or an existing client, when you're talking to them, is going to have. It is, to your point, it's going to go very linear and not be able to zig and zag like a human has to when they're
well, exactly
selling.
right. Well, I gotta think too, like people listening, like everybody's talking about sales and context how they sell. There's a lot of industries, right?
Yeah.
that require salespeople to be face to face. Like
Yep. Yes.
my one
Good
brother
point.
sells financing for Bank of America, and he's in practice management. Well, they are with like he works with entrepreneurs, franchisees, and like say dentists. They're on site. Pharmaceutical reps are on site. You have a lot of manufacturing reps that are literally like have paper routes. Not to demean them, but they go in, they assess a situation. So that's why I kept saying it's generational. I mean, yeah, are
Yeah.
there salespeople that do sit behind a Zoom call? Like my salespeople are pretty remote, right? They'll go out sometimes, but they get a lot of stuff done this way. So they can leverage AI a little bit more than some other people do. Because right now I see it more kind of prep and research and takes time off of that. So
Yeah, definitely. So what are like three takeaways that you would ask salespeople to get from leveraging AI?
I would say there's 86,400 seconds in a day. There's 1,440 minutes in a day, right? Wait, yes. And I would say really what's different from you and the top performer in your organization. And I would say it's probably the top performer how they make decisions with their time. I mean, if you look like at Live Golf or the PGA, what's the difference between the highest money maker and I don't even play golf, but I've done enough research, right? That you're talking like maybe an eighth of a stroke, a fourth of a stroke that separates from millions. I,
Right.
I would say number one, the takeaway would be some level of time management. Not to actually do the work, but just to take time off of tedious activities. I think the second thing is it's so interesting. Leaders are readers, right? And I'm not like, look, I write books. I have another book coming out this year. I I'm not trying to sell any books, but I do know that reading and research is, writing's thinking and planning. I think
I mean, we both majored in history, and that's probably why
that's
we're really
well, it's
successful in
important, right?
sales.
Exactly. Well, that's liberal arts is where it's at, right?
Yeah.
So, I would just say, I would say like that prep. And then like what's like I have ChatGPT on my iPhone, like 4.0 on my iPhone, and I have it on my all my computers right away.
Okay.
Like I literally when I put something in ChatGPT on my phone, I like somebody brought up a book the other day. I said, summarize this book and like find me the heart of the argument in the book. And it was some book on personal faith or something. It was somebody quoted somebody. I was like, oh, that sounds so freaking interesting. Like it was deep. I don't even know how I got down that rabbit hole. I was like in an airport. And I'm just listening on my thing and I'm listening to ChatGPT and a Australian voice talk to me. Like read it for me. I'm like, this is freaking great. It's like somebody's reading me a bedtime story. So there's so many ways you can prep off of that stuff, right? Like it's that prep time. And what does prep give you as a salesperson or an entrepreneur? Just confidence, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the confidence play. And I think the last thing is what I said earlier is like, don't be the last to the buggy whip people. Like, don't
I love that
like
analogy.
embrace it. Like really like my I know my mom's 79 and she has 7 grandkids. She has Snapchat. Like I hope, but she's Snapchat. She's on freaking Instagram. She's just not like Facebook trolling. Like she's on stuff. She was on WhatsApp when my son was overseas. Like, be my mom. Like,
Yeah.
don't. I mean, like, what's your deal, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't be the last to buggy with people. Embrace the technology and its augmentation. And if you like cars, right? It's nitrous oxide, Fast and Furious, man. That's what the stuff's gonna do. It's nitrous oxide. Just speed.
So, hey, where can they find you for your podcast?
Yeah, so if you go to Spotify, you go to Apple Podcasts or Android, it's called Against the Sales Odds. Um, it does, and I interview people. I kind of just did a really cool interview. I found out I knew this gal in high school. I wasn't like my best friend was her best friend.
Okay.
And we didn't hang out or anything, but I found out she wrote a book, and she's like this boss at women businesses and stuff, and finance, and I just had her on my podcast, so I'll interview people about how they sell, how they do business. A lot of sports executives on there too. I give tips and like 9-minute clips and stuff, just kind of some thoughts, and usually they're pulled out of training that I'm doing. So my team will literally pull clips of me training, so you're kind of getting me more in the moment. So you
Cool.
can find it on there, and you can find me on LinkedIn, um, Instagram, Twitter, X, or whatever it is at this point. And I know I'm on TikTok too, from what I hear. There's clips on TikTok.
So
From
basically,
what you
name
hear,
a
I love
social
it.
Yeah, I'm on
platform.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely, and I'm addicted to TikTok. So at the end of the day, like that's where I'm spending my time. And then TysonGroup.com. There's a lot of we have a lot of playbooks online, and especially if you're in leadership and or even in just sales yourself, like some play. I'm sure you could go to. I am positive you could go to AI and make your own little playbooks too. But if you don't feel like doing that and you just want to download something and you want to be old school, that's
Or
fine.
from a subject matter expert that's
That's right.
proven,
Right.
that would be you.
I
So,
appreciate that.
well, hey, thank you for
Absolutely. My
being
pleasure.
here this morning. We appreciate it, and we'll put some links in the chat below where they can find you. And on that note, happy selling, everybody. Go embrace technology, like Lance said. We'll
That's
see you
right.
next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ellie.